Welcome, everybody. This is another installment of our Wednesday conversations that are part of our March on Milwaukee digital series. This month here in July, we've been talking quite a bit about the intersections of food and culture and the complexities that emerge as a result. As you all know, we are building a set of digital modules for teachers and educators to use. And this month, we just wanted to spend a little bit of time having a set of conversations that help us to reflect on what we're missing as a result of this pandemic. And that's all of our awesome festivals, all of those awesome activities that we get to experience, sharing culture, engaging with food and food production in rich ways, and then also all the important social political implications of all of that. So I'm Rob Smith, Associate Professor of History, Director for the Center for Urban Research, Teaching and Outreach at Marquette University. And my buddy over there, Adam Carr, you want to say a few things?
Yeah, I do a bunch of different things around Milwaukee. One of them is eat a lot of food and think about the places and the people that I get the food from. So I'm happy to be here today with two people who, if I'm ever around them and partake in their products, I know I'm making good decisions.
That's right. That's right. Great decisions. And we have with us two individuals, two names, two icons really here locally, Ms. Zakia Courtney and Mr. Manan Sabir. Welcome to you both. Welcome. Come on into the conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah. How you folks doing today?
Really well.
Yeah.
Really well.
I'm doing pretty good too. Just kind of recuperating a little bit after a really great day yesterday in the garden.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, today, we're going to talk about a number of topics, and it's through the lens of urban farming, and our subtitle is Reconnecting Our Roots. So we want to get into a little bit of that, but we also want to get into your work around the broader notions associated with community wellness. We want to give you a chance to highlight not only where you've been, but what you're doing and where you're headed, and all of the ways that your experiences here in Milwaukee have helped to inform the roles that you all play in our city, and we're very thankful of what you provide and how you continually educate us and raise the social and wellness IQ of our city. So why don't we give you each just a chance to introduce yourselves, and then we have this process where we want to get people into the conversation pretty quickly. So we have a tool that we use to do that. So Ms. Zakia Courtney, you want to just do a short introduction of yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then Manan, jump in after that.
Sure. Okay. I have been vegan vegetarian for almost 30 years now. But prior to that designation, I am the mother of 6, but we have a blended extended family, so that's like 15. We have 52 grandchildren. We have about 25 great grandchildren. No great grandchildren yet. And so my love and experience with cooking vegan cuisine really simply came from wanting to provide something for my family that was better than what they had before. So if they had something that was a favorite food, just say like spaghetti. Everybody loves spaghetti. Well, when we became vegan, then what I wanted to do was make sure that my spaghetti was as good as what I had prepared before with meat, or even better. And so that part of my journey, I'm very proud of. I'm actually proud of all parts of my journey. I am an educator by profession, starting out at Urban Day School and extended through lots of different, journeys. And once I started to approach retirement, I started to get more and more requests, for food and for cooking. And so my journey as a chef really came out of demand, not something that I quote unquote went to school for or I sought to do.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. We're going to dig into some more of that, obviously, as we get into our conversation. So, Manan, what's going on, brother? Talk to us a little bit.
Oh man, I'm having fun right in this a very unusual period of time. But my name is Manan Sabir, and I am the co-owner of the Shindig Juice, also Shindig Coffee brand. We were at once called the Juice Kitchen. Actually, the name Juice Bar actually was kind of our first iteration before we landed on the Juice Kitchen. So it's quite ironic that we have that under my name, which is it brings me back. But even to take it back a little further, I got my start from my grandfather, and I have to always honor my ancestors as I try to do, as much as I possibly can. My grandfather was born in 1895, but in 1908 witnessed his friend being hung from a tree outside of a church. That led him to, at the age of 13, that led him to work on the railroads. But while working on the railroads, he discovered that he had a love for herbs, a strong love for herbs, but not a lot of education. So he utilized what was known as his own education to honor his ancestors and dig into herbs, especially using dandelion, the root dandelion, or also the leaf of the dandelion, to heal everybody in his family. So it was 12 kids, 2 wives, 6 on one, 6 on the six on the other. Everybody lived in the same house. And not everybody, if you had a broken bone, you would go to the hospital. But other than that, it was just, you would go straight to my grandfather. Everybody went to my grandfather, Gus Jackson. So, but he died when I was 2. Ultimately, my own life story led me to meet my wife, and then also I became a bonus dad, which in turn helped me to understand what I was actually put on earth for, which was to heal. And my son has a condition which it's called ectodermal dysplasia. And I always say it because I like to make sure that people recognize that it's a real life condition, that people, it's a rare genetic mutation, but it's something that people have that sometimes they may not have. One of the conditions is you don't sweat. And when you don't sweat, you harbor mucous membranes, and they gather and get really hard. Ultimately, that his condition at the age of 4 led me to juice for him. And he hasn't had a hospital stay in, I think he's 16, so almost 11, 12 years. So
Wow.
we after that decided to juice for everybody else, and from juicing at home to juicing for everybody else.
Yeah. Well, thank you both for sharing. A shot of ginger a day for me, every day.
Yeah.
Every day. All righty, let's go to the next slide, and let's get the attendees into our conversation. Mr. Key and Manan, what we try to do is to keep these conversations as interactive as possible, both with the folks here in Zoom and the folks joining us on Facebook Live. And what we'd like to do is just ask folks to share a little bit about what we're missing out on this summer, given we're dealing with COVID-19. If you can just drop in the chat, folks, any of those festivals, any of those activities, the normal summer run here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which is beautiful in so many ways. Share some thoughts about what we're missing out on, and let's get some even more recent nostalgia into our conversation. And we'll start with Ms. Zakia, and then Manan follow up. What are some of the things you feel like we're missing this summer as a result of COVID-19?
Well, Milwaukee is considered the city of festivals, and I give it that. Amongst all the other issues that we have, here in Milwaukee, it is known for the city of festivals. And so that every weekend you have an opportunity to attend, from neighborhood festivals to ethnic festivals, to even, Summerfest, if that's what your choice is. So while I miss the fact that it's not available, I don't miss the fact that we still have an opportunity to gather of sorts. And my gathering place, of course, is Alice's Garden. on 21st and Garfield. And so while we're practicing social distancing and we're mindful, of our interaction, with the public, it's still giving us the opportunity to really come together and celebrate, each other, celebrate what it is that what we've learned, from each other, celebrate our journeys, celebrate our families. What I miss most is my grandchildren. Many of them have now moved to Charlotte, but even for those, well, actually the younger ones who live in Milwaukee are actually in Charlotte right now too. So I just miss my grandchildren, but I have an opportunity to interact, with other children, in the community. And I find that to be, very, very satisfying. So always an opportunity to be able to teach and learn and explore.
Absolutely. Thank you so very much. I used to live in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I will say that I am far more active and outside more frequently in Milwaukee, Wisconsin than in Charlotte, North Carolina. A lot of that has to do with how hot and humid it is in Charlotte, but it's also a testament to the commitment to being outdoors and engaging in outdoor activity that is present here, particularly in the months when it's not wintertime, but even when it's colder. Folks still get out quite a bit, which was a surprise to me. Manan, brother, what you missing these times?
I think what we're missing is some type of family environment. Like it's funny because through hook or crook, I've probably met enough of Mrs. Akia Courtney's kids and grandkids. So not like everybody else. They probably are able to run into them a lot more than I have. But I miss family, and I miss seeing them at. I have a large family, but I miss seeing them at some of the festivals like African World Festival,
Right.
even Summerfest. There's sometimes during period of Summerfest where you'll have, especially for Black people, you'll have like Maze and Frankie Beverly and some of those other acts that come through, and you run into people who you haven't seen in a long period of time. So I really miss those. I miss African World Festival, like the African World Festival, where you can run through on a Saturday or whatever day it is, and it's just like boom, Black people, and it's fun. So
Yeah.
that's what I miss.
And for those who've never experienced African World Festival like we have, they definitely don't know what they're missing. So Manan, when you talk about that, and yes, you are the age of some of my children, we could go to African World Festival at that time, and I was very involved in it, and would not have to worry about where our kids were at. They could go about doing whatever it is that they want to do. They come back just to get more money, and and then they're gone, for the rest of the day. You didn't have to worry about anybody bothering them, anybody trying to snatch them. It was absolutely one of the best things that ever happened to Milwaukee, and that's African World Festival. And yes, I miss that tremendously. So many stories, so many memories, and our children, including you, Manan, would say that you were raised on African World Festival.
Yes, man. I was definitely raised at African World Festival. I mean, and you're right. We ran end to end from one side of Summerfest to the other side. Even the forbidden areas that we got caught in, we would run from one side to the other, and it was just fun. I mean, if you want to know what Africa is like, that it was African World Festival.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all so very much. I have an anecdote I want to share. I want to get your feedback on it. Adam, this is not at all related to our topic today, but kind of, sort of, in some ways. I was talking to a gentleman from Brazil a number of years ago, and he said, Rob, tell me the music, the artist or the group that you think most typifies African-American experiences, or if there's one group you would want me to listen to that kind of gets it, that kind of represents that cultural aesthetic, what would it be? And I said, Maze featuring Frankie Beverly. And I know that there are hundreds of others, but the fact that you brought up Maze and Frankie Beverly in this conversation related to African World Fest, like that's so classic. And I just thought I'd share that. But yeah, Maze, if there's a summertime gathering, if there's a birthday party, if there's a barbecue, Frankie Beverly shows up at some point.
Yes.
Yeah, like Maze and Frankie Beverly are like they're the modern day drum beat, modern day djembe drum, or they used to use drums to communicate to other villages in Africa, and those drums would bring people together, and for whatever reason, you can put on Maze and Frankie Beverly, it can be a fight like between your two drunk uncles, and they will stop.
It will stop. Now they
The
might go
ju- the
back to
ju-
fighting after the song, but
They
yeah,
will fight
yeah,
afterwards.
they'll do a little joy, then the pain
Yeah,
afterwards.
right. Ms.
all,
Zakia, what
all
do you
the
think
joy.
about that statement?
No, I think that's true. I mean, music moves us. Music motivates us in positive ways and negative ways. That's why there's so much dialogue about the music that modern day music and what messages it actually sending. So no, I absolutely agree. As I said, African World Festival represented the best of what it is that Milwaukee in the Midwest, I would say, definitely had to offer. So
Cool.
yeah.
Well, thank you both. Thank you both. Let's go to the next slide. Let's get into some, part of what we do. Adam, you want to jump in? I've been talking a lot. You want to run this
You
slide?
go ahead, keep going.
Okay. Part of what we do is we take these very local experiences, these rich stories around some of our local voices and our local heroes, and we try to then also bring in these more, if for lack of a better term, academic topics, so that the teachers who are talking about this stuff have some tools, and the young people have the opportunity to think about these complicated ideas or ideas that are not so complicated, but then also able to think about them in real time and on the ground. So we talk a little bit about human migration. Obviously, if we talk about the Black experience, we have to bring up the Great Migration, and we have to bring up the connections between the southern region and the northern region, and how our families cyclically move back and forth. Obviously, when we think about the urban landscape, we have to be mindful of topics such as gentrification and urban development and planning, and how we have been impacted by that, but also how our communities have engaged with those processes for the betterment of the communities. But ultimately, we're talking about community, culture, neighborhood, and as you all have highlighted, family in so many ways. And so what we're trying to do is provide these rich local stories that then give us a window into some of these broader, more sophisticated and somewhat academic ideas. And so if you have any thoughts about any of those topics, please always feel free to share. Always feel free to point us back to topics like migration or urban development. We know that you all have been involved in a whole range of those practices. But really, let's go ahead and get started into some of our questions that will move us along. And so we chunk these in 15 to 20 minute blocks. And so now we're moving into our next chunk, if you will. Adam, why don't you take over for a sec?
Well, why don't we, Manan and Zakia, what we'd love to do now is just hear a fuller version of your story into your life with food and where you are today. Manan, Zakia already knows this. I went on Facebook through the Juice Kitchen Shindig Facebook page, and I stacked up 25 images that kind of start at Amaranth and end in the current world you're in now. Which one of you wants to go first?
I can talk. I'll talk a little bit about in terms of, and I mentioned this a little bit in my introduction, is that my journey in terms of food really just came as a mother, all right, and wanted to provide the absolute best, for my children. And as you grow, you have an opportunity to be able to grow and provide even more, for that. So my goal as a chef as well as a mother was to go ahead and create delicious vegan food so that you would even quote unquote miss meat. Okay.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And so like on this picture that you see here, those are actually what we call vegan ribs. Okay. Absolutely no meat product whatsoever. It's actually made from flour, gluten flour. Okay. And it's a process, but it's absolutely delicious. I've never had anybody who did not like it, including those people who still consume meat.
Yeah.
Right? So go ahead.
I was gonna just ask. So we're gonna see some of these images. This is at the Body and Soul Healing Arts Center.
Yeah.
Can you talk about your decision of getting into veganism at all in the first place? Because especially 30 years ago, that
Right.
might have felt kind of out on the margins.
It was ahead of the game.
It was, and especially, it takes the kids, you know, to really talk about being vegetarian and, you know, pulling up to a Burger King and asking for a Whopper with no meat on it, you know, or
Let me get the bun and some lettuce.
And some
and
special
tomato,
sauce.
and tomato,
Yeah.
Extra
right.
sesame seeds.
So it takes them to talk about it, as well as a conversation I had that I moderated about a month or so ago with Ayanna Gregory, who is Dick Gregory's daughter. And so she echoed the same thing that my children now echo too, in terms of how, you know, other people would talk about them and they were made, you know, to go ahead and feel weird.
Sure.
And so with the Body and Soul Center, you know, which no longer exists, it was the one of the first places that I actually started vending, and that was from invitation to by Venus Williams. She had had my food. She knew, you know, that I love to cook, and she just said, "Hey, why don't you come? We have this market on Saturday. Why don't you come and set up and see, you know, and see what happens?" And that's what I did, and that's how I got started. That particular picture there, I think, well, it was at an event. It was at a catered event. And so I was really excited about the opportunity to be able to share what it is that I've known and learned, you know, throughout these years. But again, starting out, I did good. I mean, the kids ate it, they survived. But there were some things that there's some things that they might even talk about today, like, "Mama, you really gave us, you know, whatever it was." But
Stuff like
anyway,
this and this.
It was good.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
all right.
Well, see, and that was the other thing. I was through Fondy Market. Fondy Market used to have what was called a greens cooking contest.
Mhm.
And so one year I decided to go ahead and enter it just to see, you know. And so I entered the greens cooking contest, and that first year I took second place, right? And I was surprised, so I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna do it again next year. I did it next year. I took first place, and I held first place for a few years until I decided, like, okay, somebody else needs to have that opportunity. But that was one of my specialties, and it still is to being able to prepare greens. And for the listening audience, we're talking about collard greens, mustard turnip greens,
Yeah.
spinach greens, potato
Yeah.
greens, you know,
Come
all
on.
those things that traditionally in our culture, people had to prepare or thought they needed to prepare with meat. You know, they even had
Pork.
yeah, pork. I was trying to
Yeah.
think the specific name of it, but anyway, yeah, they had some type of pork product. Couldn't imagine themselves, you know, preparing greens without. And this is trips me out sometimes. Turkey butts. I'm like, turkey
Yeah.
butts. But anyway,
You can get cussed out at a family
hey,
gathering for bringing some greens without pork in it. You know.
yeah, or smoked turkey tails or whatever. And I'm like, you know what? And I do teach people, you know, how to do this. And so I put my greens that are made with absolutely no meat, no dairy products whatsoever up against anybody's ham hock. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, somebody said smoked ham hock. Yeah.
Mr. Kia, let me ask you a question. You mentioned a couple places, and I think it's important for us to, particularly for the young people who are going to be listening in and those who are with us now, Alice's Garden and
Yes.
Fondy Market.
Yes.
Can you just talk about the significance of those institutions? And then, Manan, if you want to add some comments too, because I know you have some thoughts on this. We want to make sure we shout out those entities and icons and places in our city. And can you talk a little bit about those two for just a second? Alice's Garden and Fondy Market.
You want me or Manan to talk?
Go ahead. Please start, Mr. Kia. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Well, Fondy Market is the largest, I think, outdoor farmers market that we have, you know, here in Milwaukee. And it's an absolutely wonderful place, you know, to be. Again, there's some restrictions now because of the pandemic. But being able to go there, it's almost like a festival too. It's a happening too, when you run into people who have the same thing in common. They're looking for, you know, good, fresh food. And there at Fondy Market, you can get food directly, you know, from the farmers. Everything that they sell, they have to have produced, you know, themselves. They have food demos, and I've been a part of that, which is really good because sometimes you see food at the market. It's like, okay, this looks pretty interesting, but I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
Like okra leaf. You know, I never knew that the leaf from the okra plant is actually edible. Okay. And I learned that, I discovered that at the Founding Market. And so, yeah, I do an okra stew with okra leaf now. And so having the demo, the opportunity to learn, have people who, again, aren't accustomed to eating fresh vegetables, actually taste the food and say, "Ooh, this is really good." And then being able to hand them a recipe and say, "Well, this is how you do it," to make it really simple. That's been really, really good. So, Finding Market is a real gem that exists in our community. The other one I want to mention too is Trickle B Cafe.
Yeah.
Actually, let's get to.
Yeah.
I think I got some of these plates are from like this plate. That's a very Trickle B looking plate right there.
It is. It is. That's Trickle B Cafe, and that's probably I did do that. Yeah. And at Trickle B Cafe, what's significant about that is Trickle B is a pay what you can cafe. And so this particular pay here looks like it has vegan chicken on it. It has a soup, might be carrot ginger soup. It has a rice ball with tempeh on it. That's what those two little bacon strips look like. A salad and a muffin. Everything totally vegan. Even the cream that's in the soup, non-dairy, everything. And the great thing about Trickle B is that it's a pay what you can. And I'm the chef there every Friday. I volunteer there every Friday to go ahead and prepare food for them. Yeah. And then at Alice's Garden, where I'm at every Tuesday, I also have a plot where a lot of the greens that I'm talking about, I actually grow. Okay. One of the things I'm proud of this year is red okra. And most people are like, what? Yes, red okra. It's absolutely, delicious. And the leaf, as I said, is edible too. And being able to make an okra stew, and people are like, ooh, I do not like okra. Well, you haven't tasted mine, so that's why you say that. But anyway.
Manan, jump in. Talk to us a little bit about Alice's Garden and some of the other urban farming you've been up to.
Alice's Garden. Say it again.
I said, yeah, go ahead and talk about Alice's Garden for us.
Yeah, Alice's Garden is a fantastic place. It's right in the heart of the kind of the Walnut Way, Lindsay Heights, Walnut area. It's in the back of the Brown Street School Academy, and it houses a number of plots for people who are live, work, serve, play in the community. It also has strong affiliations to Fondy Food Market, also Walnut Way Conservation Corporation. But besides that, it has a pavilion in that whole, mall, having meetings out there just for our men's group that I was running at Walnut Way Conservation Corporation a couple of years ago. So it has a significant amount of potential because it's right in our neighborhood and everybody sees it. So you bring your ideas and your thoughts into this into this garden, and they don't shun you. I think one thing about our community is that we have a lot of ideas, and if we're able to ground those ideas in the ground, then we can prosper as a community. And gardening is probably the ground zero of our thoughts and ideas, especially in the garden.
Venus Williams, who's the executive director of Alice's Garden, would be with us right now, but for the fact that she's leading a reading circle in Alice's Garden right now. And I think, Manan, the point you made there is so perfect, which is when you go to Venus, who's, the leader of Alice's Garden, what she'll say, which I think is the kind of leadership we need, is whether it's an idea or a plant, she'll help you plant that, but it's then going to be your job to tend it, right? So she's not going to say to you, give me your idea and I'll take it over. She helps people grow their ideas, which is a beautiful analogy and metaphor for what happens in the garden, both in terms of the produce that grows as well as the people and community that grow there.
Yep, absolutely. Whether it's veganism, whether it's juicing, and Manan, you can start. What does it mean for our communities that we're having these very vibrant conversations about this level of wellness? This is wellness in another conversation. This is not just simply exercise. It's not just making sure to eat a salad for dinner. You know, we're talking about veganism. We're talking about juicing. Make some sense out of this for us. Like, this is happening in remarkable ways in the African American community. What does all this mean?
Well, I think right now we're in a sobering movement, and our movement isn't just about Black Power, because it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's about being sober, moving into the movement, and moving through the movement, and moving past the movement of Black Power. I think we have to realize that food is at the heart of most conversations, and food is also a soul conversation. You can sit down and you can drink some juice with somebody, or eat some vegan food, or just eat some regular food or whatever it is, and you don't have to say anything, and it's a conversation just through the ums and the ahs. So it's past the us discussing health and wellness through food and gardening is well past just exercising and all that stuff. It's a party. It's your spirit. It's feeling your spirit. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to fill up our spirit before we leave this place. That's number one. And I think people are now starting to realize that. Before, when we jumped into COVID, people were like drinking their heads off, But then we're starting to see, and we're starting to realize that we're losing people to this condition, whatever it is, COVID, coronavirus, whatever you could call it, right? People are dying. It's not super alarming, but it's really alarming. It's alarming enough that we are losing a lot of our older people to this by hook or crook. And I think those people that are leaving, including me, I lost my dad, not to COVID, but we know that because COVID is bringing people inside and sitting them down, and people are not as active, then those people are coming to the realization that life isn't just drinking and entertainment, man. Life can be sobering, and now we've come to this position in life that we have to be sober, and we have to have real conversations.
Absolutely.
Before we wrap up this section, I just wanted to finish with Zakia. You started your life in veganism 30 years ago. You indoctrinated your family into it. Maybe it took them a little bit of convincing, but now you provide food for people all over the community. Can you just talk a little bit about these next couple images that we're going to look at here? Some of these fine people and what they're doing that lies totally within your legacy. This is Vigo, and this is a celebrity chef. Just from having scrolled through her images on Instagram and Facebook, I'm like, give me some of that. That looks incredible. So tell us what we just saw there.
Okay, so as we talk about the journey to become plant-based, at the time that my husband and I had made the decision, and we made the decision based upon information that was being provided to us, as well as health reasons. My husband was told, by a doctor that he was borderline diabetic and with hypertension. And he had the option of either changing his diet or going on medication. And so we decided to go ahead and change our diet. I had already been changing, some in advance of that. But for him, it was like almost like, cold turkey in terms of things that he was no longer consuming. Anyway, when we made that decision, we had maybe 6 children, at home at the time. And the oldest, which is Jabari, he changed. And then my youngest, who was like 2 at the time, that was Yomi, he changed. He didn't have a choice. But two of them in between, Ajoya and Akil, the one you just saw the 2 pictures of, they resisted the most. Joya would sneak food. She would have her friends bring her meat. She would do all kinds.
Meatballs in her purse.
Yeah, she would do all kinds of things. She would do all kinds of measures to be defiant, even to the point that we were in a park one day and she ate a brat off somebody else's grill, a meat brat off somebody else's grill, and she had an allergic reaction to it. And we wound up having to rush her to the hospital because her throat was closed up. It was funny at first, but then it got to be real serious. So she had to go to. She wound up in the emergency room. She is now a celebrity vegan chef. She's won so many contests for her mac and cheese and other things. She beat out other chefs in contests who were making, meat, kind of dishes. She's just that good. And then the other one, Akil, he was the same way. He resisted. He found all kinds of ways to go ahead and get meat because the rule was you couldn't eat meat in the house, but whatever you do outside, that was up to you. He too now is a vegan chef, phenomenal, has his own truck. And you saw a picture of that before. Vigo and his business, his wife turns out some phenomenal cakes. I don't know if you saw that on the website, Adam, but they're doing well. And both of them are located in Charlotte. Akil left his job as a general manager for a restaurant chain to go ahead and start his own business. Joya, is totally self-sustaining. Both of them are self-sustaining based on, their own business. So I'm really proud of them. I'm proud of all of my children, but those two in particular as vegan chefs.
Don't tell your children this, but Kill was one of my favorite. Don't let this leak out to Jabari. He probably
Unsolicited, Manan. You're talking to a vegan and you're starting beef for no reason. Look at you, Manan. Get out of here.
And we on Facebook.
Oh.
Yeah, it was too late. You did it, but anyway, yeah. But that was, as I said, we've had some really, really interesting journeys. And one of the things I want to say too, because Rob, you've mentioned veganism, and I want to make a distinction between veganism and plant-based. All right.
Sure,
because some people who look at the whole thing about vegan and Manan, you talked about movements and stuff. They look, it's all about animal rights and lots of different things, but it can be used to divide us. And I don't get into that argument, whatsoever. If you want to say plant-based because that's what we're talking about as it relates to food, then so be it. But there's some people who take the whole concept of veganism to a whole nother place, again, that can create divisions. And I'm not about that. When we talk about food for gathering, one of the things for sure is that when you serve vegan food, everybody can eat. Okay. When we come to the table, everybody can eat. And so that's what I stand for.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about this broader conversation around urban farming and urban wellness and reconnecting to the land. We played with this subtitle a little bit, and we really wanted to get some thoughts about, to hear from you all, your thoughts about the importance of reconnecting to the earth. We live in an urban space. Space is limited. How important has it been that folks are now growing their own food, that there's a wide scale movement to take urban farming more seriously, and to move that toward a broader conversation around wellness? Can you reconnect us to the land? Let me just put it that way. Why is that important? And either of you can jump in whenever you feel ready.
I think it's important. One, I hinted on it earlier, is that our land has, and land period, wherever you are, whatever land it is, has electricity. And our bodies are made up of protons, neutrons, electrons, you name it, we got it, right? And we have the whole periodic table from chemistry all inside of us, plus elements that are not a part of us. Inside of us that we're not knowledge of, that are inside of us. Our bodies, conduct power through the land, and the moment that we place any type of seed into the ground, we absorb that power. We absorb all of that power. And Ms. Zakia said it all the way. Being in that garden is nothing but power. And that's what people are starting to rediscover, is the fact that, we're living in you're living in a world under a president and a political structure that wants this place to be in chaos. But ultimately, people were saying, like, well, since we're in chaos, we're gonna reground ourselves in our backyards, and especially in urban dwellings, this is what we're doing. Where even places like what we call a Newark Brick City, majority of the homes have gardens.
Wow.
Like, you can walk down the street, and it can be not great homes, not great looking homes, but you'll see tomatoes.
Mhm.
And this is 90% of the blocks.
Yeah.
You'll see the guys who were, just at the corner store buying, a pint, going back and kind of clipping a tomato.
Right.
So
Right.
it's an amazing feat, and it's an amazing journey. And these are some brand new gardens. So just imagine, having power in your hands.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. Tell us some of your thoughts about the importance of reconnecting to the land and the earth. Give us some of your thoughts.
Well, I totally agree with Manan and what he said. And, it's interesting that I had a phone call maybe about an hour before, we got on this call with one of my elderly neighbors, meaning that she's older than me. She's like in her 80s. And she called with a idea that I thought was just so perfect. She said, Sakia, what do you think if we did something on our block where everybody would have a garden and we would grow food and share the food that we grow, with each other? Meaning that somebody might grow squash, somebody might specialize in tomatoes, somebody might specialize in greens, and then we just share what it is that we grow with each other. And I told her, I said, Miss Juanita, that's an excellent idea. And she wanted to know if we could do it for this year. I said, it's probably too late for this year unless we're going to, do just fall vegetables. But just in terms of creating that plan and moving forward on that for next year, I told her I'm with her. And she even took it a step further. She said, well, yeah, I think that instead of us just passing out flyers, that we should go to each of our neighbors' house one-on-one and present them with this idea. I said, Miss Juanita, that's a great idea. So being able to connect, and she just did this a couple hours ago, but being able to connect to the land and then being able to connect to our community is a natural connection that we have lost. There were many people prior, I would say my generation. Yeah, I'm baby boomers. There were many people in the baby boomer generation, Black people in particular, that didn't want to have anything to do with gardening or farming because it was so connected with our experience in the South. And many people had to work so hard that they wanted to leave that part of their lives behind. Not everybody, but there were a great majority. And then there were some, like my father, who would always have like some collards or something planted in the backyard. Never made a big deal, out of it. So as a young adult, I never thought about gardening. But what impacted me in terms of gardening was a friend that I had met who lived in Parkland, okay, and which is Parkland, subsidized housing. And what she did was she would take the area that was right around her house, okay, and she would plant. And then every year she would expand it a little more because you're not supposed to do that, when you live in subsidized housing. But she did. And the housing authority didn't bother her because it was so beautiful. In fact, what the housing authority eventually did was use her garden or her house to show prospective tenants for the housing what you can do in terms of taking care and enhancing your property. I don't know if they still do it or not, but she was the one that got me really interested in gardening. And at that point, I just turned my whole backyard, into a garden. Then I got involved in working, and so I didn't have a chance to pay as much attention to it as I wanted to. But I always knew that once I retired, I would go back, to that. And that's exactly, what I did. So when you talk about connecting to the land, connecting to families, connecting to our wellness, we have an herbal apprentice program where we learn from each other about different herbs. So as you talked about, your grandfather and the role that he played You know, we should, and many of us are doing the exact same thing. There are many of us that knew, you know, that when this whole COVID thing came up, that, you know, get the elderberry syrup and where to get it from and what other kind of herbs that you can do. My
Right.
grandchildren participated in a soil and something program that we had one year at the garden. My granddaughter got stung by a bee, right? She knew exactly what plant to go to and pull a leaf off of there to go ahead and give her some relief. All right. And she
Bergamot,
was,
right?
that was
Bergamot?
one. I think the one that she used was mullein. Okay.
Okay, mullein,
Yeah.
mullein and bee balm. Yeah.
Yeah. But she knew exactly what to do. She didn't freak out or anything. She just knew what plant to go to and wrap around, you know, her arm for that bee sting, you know, that she had. So again, when we look at what role that all of this plays, you know, in Detroit, they had a huge movement with all these vacant lots. They wanted to go ahead and turn into community gardens. Yes, they need to do that. You
Mhm.
know, the one that Andre Lee Ellis has, you know,
Right.
on Ninth and Ring, and how he has engaged so many of the young men, you know, in that neighborhood in terms of the gardening and the kind of programs that he's able to bring to the garden as a result of the garden being there and those young men being there and having a capture audience. So we can never underestimate the power that gardening and urban farms have. And now with the millennials, that particular generation has really, you know, picked it up. I've watched them in Alice's garden, how they come, how they tended to the land, how they're using techniques that, you know, we may not even know. And
Right.
so again, you can't underestimate the power of connecting with the earth. And Manan, as you said, connecting with the seed, because everything starts from the seed. And being able to take the seed, plant the seed, whether or not the seed is going into your ground, into the ground, or going into your mind, it goes into your soul, it goes into your spirit, and that allows it to grow and develop into what it is that we're seeing today in terms of people really caring not only about their environment but their wellness and their sustainability.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so very much. Go ahead, Manan. You want to say something?
Wow, I was like, that's right.
That's it.
You know, as we enter into the last stretch, I mean, one thing Venus Williams says, just to paraphrase her a little bit, she'll make this point to people who visit the garden that we would not be here were it not for the ability and deep heritage with growing food that Black people have, right? Like
Right.
literally, humanity would not exist were it not for that ability, nor would this country exist. I would love if we can pull this off. I don't know if we can, but Manan, I have a bunch of pictures. I actually got emotional looking at them today, just kind of walking through, starting with these bottles, which look like potions in a video game, filled with delicious juice. I have 25 images that kind of walk through your experience at the Juice Kitchen
Yeah.
and into Shindig. And there's actually a part of the reason I got emotional is that I've seen all these amazing people being in places, which seems long ago. But here's Janine Edwards at Cafe Amaranth.
Go along. Boiler up. We went to college together.
Yeah.
Here you are at Alice's garden,
Yeah.
holding what's in that gallon?
Purple haze.
There it is.
Yeah.
That looks like when you first started, you used to deliver gallons of juice to us. We used to buy it. Yep.
Yep.
Here's your next step. So you got started in the kitchen here at Amaranth and this building.
Yep. Parks Place was. Woo! That's crazy, man.
I just got this from your Facebook. So
It's funny because I had a friend walk in the studs with me, and I had a friend. I mean, he's still my friend, but he's a multi-millionaire, and he said this will never work. I said,
Wow.
gotcha.
Right.
yeah.
My father, people knew my father, and one thing you can't tell him is something is you can't say can't.
Right.
So you took a big swing, kind of pouring your whole life, your whole future. There's Yvette, Ashley, some great people.
Yeah.
And then, so speaking of can't, here's you canning Yes, you can. And actually, speaking of which,
That's my
the
dad.
the gentleman who said you can't say can't. I miss this space. I'm
Yeah.
not. I'm. You know, and the team and the vibe that was in there.
Yep.
Great energy in the Juice Kitchen, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to, I mean, how revolutionary it was. I mean, really on 17th and North Avenue, where the Juice Kitchen was and will always be in my heart. You know, it felt like the kinds of conversations, the kinds of people, kind of weird stuff that would happen in there. Like, who's this guy? What's he doing?
That's me.
Yeah, get a yoga mat out.
Yeah.
Challenging people to detox, to think really intentionally about who they are and what's going into their body.
Man, that was if you go back to that, the two guys I'm holding in my arms, one guy just called my sister and said, I helped him change his life because I had to front on him, and I just stepped on his toes. I said, you're not doing anything," and he said, what do you mean? And we just had this big long conversation. 2 years later, or a couple years later, he calls me. So the other guy, another guy is in Cali, and he's a recording artist. He's also a straight vegan. So he's vegan, and like he basically is. He's a faster. I'm gonna call him a faster because he's like it's like collard greens and water. But it's
So,
cool though.
The Juice Kitchen was this space where you made juice for people, but then it became a place for conversation. It became a place for relationship, which you then sort of leveled up again as you became entwined with the whole remarkable Sherman Phoenix project.
Yeah. I remember the early conversations, Manon, about the Phoenix. Great.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Command Central is like, we appreciate the nostalgia, but we only got 5 minutes left.
I think this is
real
just
quick. When we leveled up, we determined that that all things don't stay the same. You gotta change.
Yeah.
And like our lives, we wanted to make sure that stepped to the plate and did something completely different. And we are in our family, just 10 seconds in our family, we want to make sure that we do things 180. About faces, something different, and that's what we read upon when my wife and I was to just completely do things that are left field. So,
but we do need to start moving to Q&A, and we're going to start getting some questions from our attendees. But let's start with one that is both simple and complex. Ms. Zakia, what do we need to be teaching our young people? When we're in the classroom talking about food and culture in Milwaukee, what are some jewels that you can provide for us to make sure we emphasize in the classroom with teenagers and college students and even middle schoolers? What are some lessons, man?
I think it should be hands-on, because people learn best, with hands-on. Again, I'll go way back because I remember a time where in school, one of your projects was to grow sweet potato, the leaves from the sweet potato. It would sit in your window for a while, or from potato, just to go ahead and watch that process. So I think that when we look at food, and culture, is that we need to connect to see where food has come from, what it is that you can and cannot do with it. I remember having a grandson one time at a farm, and some cherry tomatoes, and I kind of plucked one off and put it in my mouth, and my grandson's like, "Ugh, Grandma, what are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm eating a tomato." He's like, "That's not a tomato. You get tomatoes from the stores." I'm like, "Oh, okay." That's when I knew I had to have a garden. I needed to have a garden. All right. So the first thing I would say is be hands-on with it and be able to connect, the culture, or connect a food with the culture it comes from. Whether or not we're talking about yams and sweet potatoes coming from West Africa, or we're talking about where it is that rice is cultivated, where it is that it grows. Every food product has a culture that's connected to it. It has a history that's connected to it, and we are connected to that. And so it's something that we need to know. Uh, the other question here is what's unique about the culinary scene in Milwaukee is that it is progressing. And I like what Manan said in terms of the changes that, you know, he and his family has made. The culinary scene is progressing in in Milwaukee. And sometimes I look up and it's like, oh wow, there's another vegan chef, which is
Yeah.
good. I welcome that. You know, I welcome that. I'm just saying it's not even a matter of competing. You know, it's a matter of contributing because who it is that I can't reach, maybe somebody else can reach them. And that's the most important thing is that we do those things that we need to do on behalf of our community so that we, you know, we be better in it. What do
Yeah.
I hope to see in the culinary scene in the next decade? Just more. You know, last week, Friday, I did uh, a vegan, I did a vegan fish fry. All right. And the product I used was banana blossoms. Now, I'm pretty sure most of you have never had banana blossoms.
No.
But if you tasted that vegan fish I made last week, you would be amazed that it was not indeed fish. Okay? Not at all. So that's what I'm looking for. More creativity, more kinds of things that we can share, more types of food entrepreneurs, you know, like Manan and others.
But nah, if we're in the classroom with high schoolers and middle schoolers or even college students, what are some of the key teachable lessons? What do you want them to know? What should we be emphasizing around these questions associated with food and culture and community and Milwaukee? Give us some of your thoughts because we do use these very practically. I want to make sure you all know that you're teaching us how to be better educators right now. You're muted. You're muted, Manan.
Sorry about that. I think that one of the major teachable lessons I could say to the students of the Milwaukee culinary scene, especially the Black Milwaukee culinary scene, is to start small. Is to analyze. I always tell people to break down uh, the smallest item and start there. Um, for example, uh, try to break down in this. I'm a kind of a scientist at heart, but break down the compounds in a Frito Lay or a Cheeto, or break down the compounds in in an apple and why it makes you feel so good when you eat it. Why does it? Why do doctors tell you an apple a day keeps the doctor away? You know, analyze those particular anecdotes, but also analyze uh, why food makes makes a difference or not, or it doesn't make a difference. So I would say try to start small and just work your way out. That's the best thing I could really teach and tell people about food. Never bite off more than you can chew.
Appreciate that. All right, let's go to the next slide. We're going to wrap up our Facebook Live, and then we're going to hang out for just another 5 or so minutes in case folks have a few more questions. We will have a conversation in about a week or so, a table talk, we call it, 8 p.m. Where's the date for that? July 30th, where we will give our educators an opportunity to talk through what we've been discussing this month and share some more tips and share some classroom strategies with the beverage of your choice. And then on August 5th and August 12th, we will begin to talk about voting. The 5th, we'll do a history of voting. And then on the 12th, we'll talk about what occurred on August 11th and then start prepping for November in some other ways. Let me just say, Ms. Zakia and Manan, my 12-year-old son will periodically say, Dad, I need some more vegetables.
Mhm.
He will
Good.
also say, Dad, you haven't juiced any ginger in a while. He's been sitting right next to me and he's commented about some of the things that they do in his school around gardening. And I just want to personally thank you both for being a part of the village that's educating my child about not only his own sense of identity, but how to be healthy as he grows and shapes that identity. And Manon, you've met him obviously, and he knows you, Miss Zakia. He's been in the spaces when you've catered. So let me personally thank you both. Adam, you want to say anything, and then we'll close out on Facebook.
Well, I guess I think, as Zakia pointed out as an answer to the first question, the best way to experience any of what we're talking about is by tasting it, right? So Zakia is at Trickle B on Fridays for lunch, which I encouraged Rob to go to last week, and he said instead he's going to eat a box of oatmeal cream pies. He said it, not me. And also you have a residency at Alice's Garden.
Beef? That's beef. We're not talking about beef today.
Well, you got to go meatless if you don't want beef, Rob. So Zakia also on Tuesdays at Alice's Garden does dinners as well. Is there anywhere else that the folks can get your cuisine on a regular basis?
That on a regular basis, that's it right now. Like you said, Fridays from 11 to 2 at Trickle B Cafe, and Tuesday evenings from 4 to 7 at Alice's Garden. Once a month, at Alice's Garden on Thursday. I think I'm there next week, Thursday, too. And Rob, if you have a thing for beef, then I got something for you. Yesterday,
I don't.
Yesterday I made a vegan meatloaf that you would absolutely love. But on Tuesdays, I usually have burgers, and I got a couple of specialty burgers. I got one just for you, so make sure you stop by.
I'm not a big beef eater, so I'm coming to get both of those.
So, and Manon, I've heard rumors of your juice being available again in the near future. Yep. Can you tell us anything about when folks can have in their hand a bottle of your elixir, maybe at their front door?
Yep. And so a part of our 180, our journey is funny. It's completely funny. We laugh about it almost every day, but no, every day we kind of wake up and it's a joke because we didn't know how we got here. I think that's number one. But number two, Shindig Juice is going online in the next couple of days, and it'll be available to everybody on a national platform. We are being mentored through PepsiCo. Pepsi has been tremendous, and also, believe it or not, they're giving $430 million to all Black causes. So we're kind of on the front end of hoping and helping to determine where that money goes. We're a small percentage of that, not a whole 100%. Very, very small grain, but yes, the Shindig Juice, you'll be able to get it in another couple of days. You can order online. It will come to your door. Also, you can get it from 2 locations, either Sauce and Spice right now, and our friends at Collectivo. So we'll start there, and we'll go from there to everywhere.
Well, thank you both very much. We're going to end our Facebook Live feed right now, and if you can just hold on for a few more minutes, we'd appreciate it. Thank you so very much, folks, and thank you for joining us on Facebook.
Thank you.
Okay, we are no longer live on Facebook. We got a few folks still hanging out with us. If anybody wants to ask a question or two, please feel free, and then we'll get Manon and Miss Zakia out of here. They've got plenty of things to do. Miss Zakia, how can I get the? Let me start with the question. How can I get the meatloaf? What do I need to do to get the meatloaf? Let me just.
I would tell you I have some left over, but I think I have some left. But I have to check. I had people in my house, so leftovers don't usually last too long.
And I'll be patient too.
That reminds me of my grandmother, because every time I would come by, she would have a pound cake on the table, and I would or on the radiator. I'd be like, man, Grandma, and do you have any more pound cake? And she'll sometimes look, and it was like, oh, I already know what that means.
I'll see you Friday at Trickle B, because Adam has been pushing me to stop over there on Friday, so I'll make sure to get over there this week.
Okay.
Anybody got any questions? Anybody, any attendees? Go ahead, Nate. If you're talking, you're muted.
Sorry, I just had my hand up like that. Looked like I was trying to talk, but I wasn't. But I appreciate everybody's time and expertise in this area, and I've got a lot of food that I got to start trying to eat. So thank you so much for being here today.
And real quick, Nate, can you just introduce yourself? Because I think it's important for these folks to know what you're up to.
Yeah, I'm a school counselor in West Dallas at Central High School. Partnered up with Rob on a couple things, leadership and brotherhood, a thing down at Marquette, which was great. And from there, just got plugged into this March on Milwaukee series, and it's something I look forward to every week. So it's been fabulous. So thank you, Adam, and everybody.
And Kristen and Heather. Oh, Lisa, what's going on, Lisa? We've got a number of folks who've been in the mix, making sure that we can continue these. You know, Nate's been working with what is a very rapidly increasing number of African-American students in the West Dallas district. And he's really been committed to getting those young men and women into conversations that are important for them. And you all are doing some curricular reform and overhauls and everything. So, you know, we're here to be as supportive. We know how difficult it is as those students transition into an environment, you know, unfamiliar to them, and they are unfamiliar to other folks. So, any other questions? Anybody got anything else? Cool. All righty, Ms. Zakia Manan, we thank you so very much. We won't keep you any longer. We'll be in touch via email just with a few follow-up things, and then we'll be coming to eat. And Manan, I'm coming to get some juice, or I'm ordering it online or whatever.
Yeah.
ASAP.
Yeah. One thing about our juice is that now we're able to produce it, mass produce it, and just a reminder to mass produce, and also it'll be able to stay shelf stable for up to 60 days. So non-pasteurized, but we have a process to help us keep it shelf stable. So
I'm looking forward to that.
yes, we'll start with 3 juices. We have our ginger, and then we'll kind of roll out the Mike Tyson punches after that.
What are the first 3?
Purple Haze, North Ave, and Real Bucks. And then our ginger is our ginger bang. We didn't go straight ginger yet because the prices of ginger have skyrocketed. So I want to kind of keep that down.
When does Sea Walk and Soul Food debut? Those are the ones I missed the most.
So those will be coming up hopefully in the near 2021. So I mean, a couple months. Yeah. And then Black Lemonade will be coming up too.
Yeah, you know I was going for the Black Lemonade. That was the next question. So
yeah. But what the goal is to make sure that we have a black juice company at a national level, working with a national or international company. So that was a part of my dream, and hopefully we're making it happen.
Cool. All righty. Mr. Zakia, I will see you Friday.
All right. Look forward to seeing you.
9, I will be in touch. Thanks everybody for joining. We're going to wrap up now, and we'll see you tomorrow for those who take part, and then we'll see you next month, the 5th and the 12th.
Bye, Mama.
Bye.